I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time when, during the Obama administration, the country was in an economic downturn. And Obama told us that the government had to tighten its belt just as American families need to do sometimes. And I thought at the time, that's absurd. Why? Well, because governments aren't like families. Governments aren't like businesses, which is why I always found it offensive when people suggested that just because somebody was theoretically a good businessman, he would make a good president. Governments do not run like businesses, and they certainly don't run like families. Sometimes the best thing a government can do to turn things around economically, to get us out of an economic slump, is to spend more money. We're living in a different kind of time, though. First of all, and most obviously, a huge a huge goal, I should say, of the Trump regime is to increase wealth disparity in this country, to enrich people like Donald and like the obscenely wealthy Jeff Bezoses of the world. But then there's this other thing going on. Obviously, I'm talking about an issue separate from what seems to be the main agenda of the Trump regime, other than increasing wealth disparity, which is to vilify immigrants and essentially terrorize people in the LGBTQ plus community, especially trans people. But just specifically in terms of the economics, they seem to be telling us that the United States of America can't afford anything, right? Elon Musk's whole agenda was allegedly economic efficiency, which is why they gutted agencies, why they fired so many people, why they withheld funds. We don't have enough money, or we need this money for other things. So, two questions. What do we need the money for? Well, apparently it's to give billions of dollars to a fascist ICE to make it easier for them to detain illegally and disappear immigrants and undocumented workers, right? That seems to be high on the list of priorities. But we don't have money for things that would actually make our lives better. So the question is, what actually was the purpose of saving all of that money? What actually was the purpose of defunding agencies like USAID that had as its mission saving lives and paying farmers in America hundreds of millions of dollars in order to help in that effort? What is the point of the richest country on the planet if our government does not believe that the money it has, the vast sums of money it has, is to make our lives better? Truly, what is the point of our government if we are repeatedly told that there is not enough to go around because the uber wealthy need more tax cuts, ICE needs more funds to arrest people illegally, but we can't afford vaccines, we can't afford health care, we can't afford to do anything for the American people that will improve their lives? Because next thing you know, we're going to be told that, well, we can't afford Social Security anymore either. So let's just play that one out for a second. Social Security was instituted because older people no longer able to work, were essentially homeless and dying. And at the time, the United States government thought that that was a bad thing, and we should do everything in our power to make sure that older Americans and disabled Americans were able to live dignified lives, lives in which they could eat and have a place to live. This government does not believe either one of those things. So we have to keep in mind that it is not just the Trump regime that is withholding necessary funds for necessary things. It changes the entire way in which the world sees us. Because under Donald and the fascist Republican Party, America acts like a country not only that doesn't care about its own people, but that just does not have the resources or the wherewithal to do anything to help them. As if indeed the government were some hostile foreign entity, as Ronald Reagan would have had us believe. So we need to keep in mind that the government is us, and the money the government uses for nefarious purposes under this regime belongs to us. And that is leverage, and that is power. We just need to figure out how best to deploy it. Let's dive in. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is wonderful to have you here. Let's kick it off with one of my least favorite, but that suggests that I have any favor toward at all. One of the worst people in the Trump regime, Press Secretary Ava Braun. Sorry, I'm always making that mistake. Wonder why. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, who's actually more of a Leni Riefenstahl than an Eva Braun, but you understand what I mean. She held a news conference. I'm pretty sure she showed up late. And she spun her usual lies in order to try to cover up for Donald and his failures, because that is what we pay her for. Leavitt took the chance to attack former Press Secretary Jen Psaki. It must have been a really slow news day for her incredibly insensitive, quote unquote, comments about the tragic, horrific school shooting in Minnesota. Let's take a look at Psaki's tweet, which read, quote, "Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayer does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers," unquote. I mean, to me, it sounds like Psaki is speaking for billions of us, but let's take a look at Leavitt's incredibly measured and respectful response.
I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, attacked prayer and pushed gun control in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
Would she really? Says the most disrespectful person I've ever encountered. Okay. She said it. I don't even need to remind you of this. She said it. Those children were literally praying when they were shot at. We know, listen, I have no interest in having a theological discussion right now. I really don't. Nobody is saying you can't pray or praying is ineffective if it helps you in some way. But I think we have more than enough evidence after the horrific string of school shootings and mass shootings we've had in this country over the last couple of decades to know that even if prayer had some tiny impact, it is not enough. Clearly, it in itself is not enough. So I think it's completely reasonable to be sick to death of politicians, Republican politicians, saying they're giving their thoughts and prayers to the victims, and now is not the time to politicize a tragedy. Well, when should we address such tragedies, especially since in America, there is practically no space in between the last school shooting and the next one? Levitt is continuing to push the ridiculous thoughts and prayers narrative. But faith leaders, including those of her own Catholic faith, have decried this rhetoric. One archbishop from Chicago said, quote, "We must also cry out for action to prevent even one more such tragedy," unquote. And Sisters of Mercy, a Minnesota Catholic church, was quoted as saying, quote, "Our response can no longer be thoughts and prayers alone," unquote. This reminds me, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but, I mean, it's not exactly a joke, but reminds me of something I heard once. A man was in a flood, and as the flood waters rose, he had to climb into the attic of his house, and eventually he ends up on the roof, and he's praying to God, "Can you please help me?" A boat comes by with a rescue team, and the man says, "I am praying to God. I am waiting for God to rescue me. Thank you, but no thank you." The man doubles down on his prayers. A helicopter comes by with a rescue team, lowers a ladder, and the man says, "God has this. I am putting my faith in God to help me." And then finally, the floodwaters consume his house entirely. And the man screams out to God, "How could you abandon me in my time of need? I prayed, I asked you." And God says, "I sent you a boat and a helicopter. What else did you expect me to do?" If you believe in such things, if you believe that there is a God who can be appealed to, then you must understand that, well, as we're often told, God works in mysterious ways. If there is a God, said God has given human beings the power to do things like create vaccines that save untold millions of lives. Said God has given human beings the ability to come up with very, very creative ideas to end gun violence, like buyback programs and making semi-automatic weapons illegal. If the Catholic Church is saying thoughts and prayers are not enough, maybe if you're a person of faith, you should listen to that, because it's never just about thoughts and prayers. Good works are something that people like Levitt are supposed to believe in. Human action is something that is supposed to be part of being a person of faith. So to suggest that criticizing people who have real power to end gun violence in this country, who instead do nothing except offer their useless thoughts and prayers, is sort of beyond the pale. And quite frankly, I don't understand why that cross around this woman's neck doesn't burst into flame. This is probably not going to surprise you, but Leavitt said even more egregious things during the presser. She was asked a totally insane question because the White House press room is almost completely stocked now with plants who are undoubtedly told ahead of time what to ask her. Whether or not trans ideology could soon be considered domestic terrorism under the Trump regime. And this is what she had to say.
I've seen a lot of calls for action, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right, actually, is calls for the FBI to institute a new class of domestic terrorism that involves trans ideology. Is that something that the administration would support?
I would have to check with the appropriate people on that.
Oh, would she need to check on that? Because, that seems sane and rational. The answer to this question should have been swiftly and immediately, no. That's inhumane and crazy. The fact that Leavitt wouldn't confirm either way means that Donald and the Trump regime are testing the waters on what would be just an escalation in the war on trans people in this country. That's what they do. Like, that question was something Leavitt knew was coming. Not giving an answer, essentially saying, let me check on that, suggests to people who are willing to give this regime the benefit of the doubt that this is a reasonable question and a reasonable approach to how this country treats trans people. The Trump regime is essentially a dumpster fire. This week, Donald's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced that his department will take over management of Washington, D.C.'s train hub, Union Station. This is yet another step in the administration's federal takeover of that city. ABC News had more on the changes that are happening at Union Station.
Union Station is just the latest iconic D.C. landmark to get swept up in what President Trump calls a crime emergency here in the nation's capital. It is owned by the federal government, but up until recently, it's been managed largely by Amtrak. Now, the Department of Transportation says that is going to change.
People are concerned about the safety and the homelessness and the dirtiness of Union Station. That's got to change.
National Guard troops already fill this gateway to the city. And as we arrived, the Department of Transportation, which owns Union Station, announced it was wresting control of its management away from Amtrak. It's another show of government force in what President Trump has called a crime crackdown, despite city officials pointing out violent crime was already at a 30-year low, according to police data.
Oh, no. Union Station is a hellhole. I was there not long ago, and I'm telling you, it was absolutely terrifying. The line at the coffee shop was so long, I almost didn't get my my latte in time for me to catch the train. It was just a horror. Donald could not manage apartment buildings. Just ask my grandfather. Casinos. Just ask all the people he bankrupted. His life. He certainly cannot manage our government. So in what universe do we think he's going to be able to manage a train station better than Amtrak? In another sign that train transportation under Donald is going off the rails, if you'll forgive me. This week, Donald fired Robert E. Primus, who is a governor on the federal on the federal regulator that oversees railroad mergers. He says that the White House provided no cause for his termination. So he does not consider it valid because, at least for the time being, civil servants cannot be fired without cause. He also questioned whether he was let go because he was appointed by President Biden. He's also a black man. Sorry, he's also a person of color. And of course, he questioned whether his position on a pending acquisition of Norfolk Southern by Union Pacific might have had a part to play in his firing. In comments reported upon by the New York Times, Primus added, quote, "The decision they're making would have had an adverse impact on the board and our freight rail network and on the supply chain. To take an agency that has proven itself impartial and to be apolitical and now make it political, I think threatens that integrity we've worked very hard at," unquote. But that's exactly the point. This is exactly what Donald is doing at the Federal Reserve Board. He's trying desperately to turn an independent, apolitical agency that has vast power and importance in our governance and turn it into an arm of the state to do his bidding. So this is just the perfect mix of what is usually behind Donald's approach to something: political retribution, racism, corporate bribery. It is the trifecta of Donald's motives. Of course, and I mean, every day we see something new that Donald is trying to take control of. If there's one thing that is absolutely true about Donald, and there are many things that are absolutely true, but in the context of what we're discussing right now, one thing that is absolutely true about him is that he has really, really bad taste. Really bad, really bad. And I know where he gets it from. My grandmother. The Oval Office and White House renovations are a testament to his complete lack of discernment, his absolute inability to appreciate aesthetics, because his obsession with gaudy gold details, which are being added oh my God, look at that nightmare. That is a nightmare. That is like a disturbing mashup of Liberace and Versailles. My word. Now, with this image in mind, would you want Donald, of all people, to be making any design decisions for you? Well, federal buildings will soon be facing this horrible fate because Donald just signed another executive order with the goal of, and I'm so sorry to say this, quote, "making federal architecture beautiful again," unquote. Okay. Is it time for our emotional support moment yet? Because I'm having a hard time here. The order requires federal buildings in Washington to maintain a classical style of Greco-Roman architecture. Oh, please, Donald, please define what that means. Draw us a picture. Liz Waitghost, the executive director of Docomomo US, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving 20th century architecture, put it quite bluntly. And let's all be blunt here, please, because bluntness is required. Quote, "Architecture should be of its moment. It seems the current administration wants to look back and not forward," unquote. Yeah, no kidding. They want to take women's rights and the rights of Black people in America back to the 1850s. So yes, they are dedicated to looking back, not forward. But it's also just insulting. I mean, can we please not turn everything into a version of his grotesque triplex in Trump Tower? I've been in it. Trust me. It is abominable beyond my ability to describe it. But unfortunately, Donald is adept at few things, but one of them is finding other ways to dishonor us. His failure to lead, his failures as a leader, are lowering America's standing throughout the world. And even our longtime allies think less and less of us. Yesterday, in a speech at a university event, Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa had some choice words for Donald and his behavior in around Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. Portugal Pulse reported the Portuguese president as saying, quote, "The top leader of the world's foremost superpower is objectively a Soviet or Russian asset. He operates as an asset. I am stating that objectively. The new American leadership has strategically benefited the Russian Federation," unquote. Well, for those of us paying attention, this has been obvious since the 1980s. It has been obvious, certainly, since Donald began to run for the presidency back in 2015. Because remember, he can say Russia, Russia, Russia hoax all he wants while sounding like a kind of obsessive toddler. But Russia did interfere in the 2016 election to benefit Donald Trump at the expense of Hillary Clinton, and Donald and his campaign willingly accepted Russia's help. If you had any doubts about whether or not Donald was beholden to Vladimir Putin, or that indeed Vladimir Putin was holding the leash around Donald's neck, you must have been convinced otherwise at that meeting in Helsinki, the private meeting between the two of them. Well, we don't know what happened because the translator's notes were confiscated. But Donald's public behavior in front of Putin was despicable and weak. And then if you're still more convinced that Donald is Putin's puppet, then surely the fact that Donald invited a brutal, murderous dictator of a hostile foreign power to meet with him on American soil, rolled out the red carpet for him, applauded him, and then capitulated entirely to him, well, then hopefully that is enough evidence to convince you that Donald continues to put Russia's interests over the interests of America or of our allies, especially of Ukraine. It's Thursday, and now we breathe. All right. We made it. It is time for our emotional support moment. So we're going to take a minute to reset. And today we're going back to the sea, one of my favorite places, where turtles glide effortlessly through the water. There is literally nothing quite like a sea turtle. Their rhythmic swimming, their quiet grace, just helps us slow things down a little bit. So let's let the waves carry some of the weight that we've been holding this week, this year, this decade. And just let's drift alongside the sea turtles. Let's watch. Okay. That helped. That helped a lot. All right, let us get to your comments, questions, etc. All right. Erin, super sticker. Erin, thank you so much for that. That is much appreciated. Maja Cheryl, thank you as always. Gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Awesome. All right. I have gonna be honest with you. I have a problem with these kinds of comments, but you know what? I'm gonna read it anyway because it's Maja Cheryl and she rocks. Thank you as always, Maja Cheryl. And the comment is, just because you're amazing, Mary, thank you for using your kindness, intelligence, and compassion to help us through these difficult times. Mary Trump is great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I very, very much appreciate that. It's extremely kind of you. And I just, honestly, the bottom line is, I just feel like we all need to be doing what we can under very difficult circumstances. And, you know, there are a lot of other people out there doing a lot more than I'm doing under much worse circumstances, but I still very much appreciate your appreciation. So thank you. Andrea, Canada here, elbows up. Thanks, guys. Yes, we did a video today about the ways in which Donald's disastrous economic policies, including tariffs, are having a massive impact on how other countries, or whether or not people from other countries are buying our goods or traveling here. And Canada is holding the line. Canada is at the front, is at the leading edge of the movement to isolate the United States economically. So keep it up. Thanks, guys. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you again. Special fee for our amazing mods, especially the very talented and capable Susan Thompson. I second that, truly. Thanks for that shout out, Maja Cheryl. Stacy 3107. Wow. Thank you so very, very much for that. That's very generous of you. Comment, Mary needs an upgraded computer fee. Yes, she does. Yes, indeed, she does. And that will happen, hopefully in the not too distant future. Kathleen, thank you so very much for that. Comment, I'm 66, have cancer and other health issues. Thank you for talking about Social Security, Mary. Well, first of all, Kathleen, I'm very sorry that you're dealing with so much, especially now, because we can't exactly count on a lot of things we used to be able to count on. But we will never stop talking about Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, and the ways in which this regime is trying to steal from us what belongs to us. We cannot let it happen. Sydney, super sticker. Thank you as always. Awesome. Pam, thank you very much. Late because of volleyball fee. Well, that's new. And also, that's a perfectly good reason to be late. Volleyball is an awesome sport. Susan, thank you as always. And again, just thank you. Gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Much, much appreciated. Lizzie Beth, thank you as always. Comment, she's saying don't use prayer as an excuse. Exactly. Exactly. Nobody's saying, well, most people aren't saying that prayer is a scam or prayer is wrong. But no, it is not enough, especially when we know there are things we can actually do that have an impact on making things better. Dan, comment, back in the 60s, my mother worried about us crossing the road to school, not dodging bullets. Yeah, no kidding. It's just, schools are supposed to be safe places, you know? And it's just unbelievable that parents can no longer send their children to school and not be constantly worried. Today might be the day. That is not how civilized societies are supposed to work. Jane, comment, I also believe faith without works is no faith at all. Yes. Yes. And by the way, well, again, I'm not going to get into any theological discussions, but that is a very good point. In the middle of nowhere, thank you so much as always. KK Caroline is such a vile, inhumane human. I spilled my guts yesterday by sharing my experience at Sandy Hook. I totally agree with Jen. Real change takes work. Faith without works is dead. Yeah. I mean, listening to that person, that enabler of a fascist regime, that Nazi propagandist, take anybody to task for basically speaking the truth is beyond the pale. In the middle of nowhere, again, that's incredible. Thank you. Gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Awesome. Angry old lady. Wow, that's hard to say, but thank you so much for gifting 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Michael, awesome. Thank you so much. Comment, Donnie himself is a crime wave. Yes, indeed he is. He's a prolific criminal. He is a bigger criminal than any of the people they are illegally detaining and disappearing. Elaine, thanks so much, Elaine. That's great. Laughing Fee, comment. Laughing Fee for picturing KK Caroline's cross bursting into flames. Yep. Don't get it. Don't understand why it hasn't happened. Same thing with lightning bolts. Where are you, lightning bolts? Richard, thank you so very much. Comment, good news, everyone. I turned 26 today. Wow. I aged out of any theoretical draft in the future, and given the current administration, that is a huge relief. That is a huge relief. And Richard, I'm very glad for that. And it's also very cool. We don't get a lot of Gen Z folks here. So awesome. Welcome. Invite more of your friends. I promise you. Well, okay. I don't know anything about the kinds of stuff you guys are interested in terms of pop culture. But, we've got something for everybody here. So invite them in. And thank you. And yeah, I'm really glad that you have aged out of draft age, because that's got to be coming soon. Joe, thank you so very much. Oh, this is great. This is a latte fee. Susan, thank you again. This is a fee for tacky gold blocking sunglasses. Yeah, those would be bestsellers, no doubt. In the middle of nowhere again. You guys are making me lose my voice. Question: did any of Donald's wives share his love of the tacky, or is it all his doing? Well, no, I mean, he definitely got it from my grandmother, but Ivana, his first wife, who I'm sorry to disabuse you of any notions you may have had, and I hope you can handle this okay, but she was a terrible person. Yeah, she had terrible taste. She was like quintessentially 80s taste, and was all in on the glitz and the big shoulders and the huge hair and the gold, and oh my goodness. And I think we can tell what kind of person Melania is. Donna, thank you so much as always, Donna. That's awesome. Comment: hi, Mary. Just want to say hi. This is a happy Thursday fate. Well, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. Betty Veronica, hi. 2.0, sorry. Comment: Brian Karam needs to put on a disguise and sneak back in and infiltrate the White House press pool. Absolutely. How much fun would that be? I'm going to give him a call after the show and tell him what you suggested. Michael, comment: these people are false Christians. They have rejected what Jesus said and did. Jesus washed the feet of the poor. Republican Christians terrorize the poor. Yes, they do. They terrorize the poor. They terrorize people who are different from them. They terrorize the most vulnerable among us. That should tell us everything we need to know. Hang on 1 second. I must hydrate. All right. Ethan, thank you as always. Gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. That is spectacular. Jose, Union Station is safe. Yeah, no kidding. I've been there more times than I care to admit the last couple of years, and I'm in New York City, so we have Penn Station, Grand Central. Union Station is tiny and basically empty, comparatively speaking. I don't. It's just all for show. That's why most of the National Guards people are stationed around the monuments, because it's more obvious and they're going to get more, photo ops. Mia comment, he could manage a lemonade stand. No, he could not. And nobody should buy lemonade from him. Kathy's a new member. Thank you so much and welcome. Joe, thank you so much for that. That is a Save the Turtles fee. Yes, and sea turtles fee. Yeah. Yes, sea turtles need to be protected. That is for sure. Oops. Rockin' steady. Thank you as always. That's great. Comment, good to see you as always, Mary. It's hard to fathom a U.S. president echoing talking points from a former KGB colonel. All the best, David. Yeah, David, it is a travesty. And the greater travesty is that the Republican Party that used to be so anti-Soviet Union is totally cool with it and is lifting not a finger to stop it. Douglas, thank you, Douglas. That's great. Comment, Mary, thank you for all you do. You're a voice of reason and truth in an insane time. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Question, do you think the damage Donald has done is beyond repair? No, I don't. But the sooner we stop it, the better chance we have to fix it. And it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, and a lot of, what I should say, it's going to take a willingness to do things that we have always been too afraid to do. So let's hope we get the chance. Wow, Gary, thank you so very much. Gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. That's awesome. Karen, super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Most excellent of you. Niner Girl 99 is a new member. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you here. Debid, Canada's in the house. Thank you so much, Debid. Comment, Mary, I enjoyed your interview with Lev today on Substack. Thank you. I did too. I did a Substack live with Lev Parnas. I'd never met him before, which is kind of weird. And yeah, we had a really good time. So check that out on Substack. My Substack live with Lev Parnas. Erin gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Thank you so very much, Erin. That's wonderful. Kathy gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathy. Jana, thank you, as always. Comment, maybe the Oval Office is a slow reveal of how the Fort Knox audit went. Yeah, I think that's a very good possibility. Liz, thank you so very much. And I know I should know what this currency is because I've seen it before, but I forget. So, but I'm going to look it up. Comment, Donald is saying war against Donald is waging war against his own people using ICE and the National Guard. From the outside looking in, it's like the Twilight Zone. I pity the USA. It will take decades to undo the damage. Yes, indeed, it will. It will. But I don't know. I don't know if pity, because a lot of people chose this. I think we need to be angry, quite frankly. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. It's all horrific. At 2 Brutus, thank you as always for that comment. I was denied a bank loan on a trailer because I didn't own enough guns. I hope you're kidding. Oh my goodness, I hope you're kidding. But you know what's weird? I'm not sure because we live in America and that's a thing that could happen. Annie, thank you so very much for that. Fee, because you're the only Trump I respect. Well, I very much appreciate that. There is actually one other Trump who is worthy of your respect, but try not to talk about her too much because she's my kid. But she's awesome. Lori, comment thanking our wonderful moderators for the help yesterday. Love you all. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Our moderators are incredible. They do extraordinary work for nothing, except their belief in what our mission is here. So thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube, to everybody streaming on Twitter and our Substack, The Good in Us, everybody listening to the podcast, to all of our new members, people gifting memberships, our super stickers, everybody giving us donations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just so you know, the easiest way to support us is just subscribe to the channel, but also we have videos dropping every single day, at least 2, sometimes 3, in addition to the lives. Watch those videos, like them, share them, comment on them. It helps us tremendously. We're trying to get to 500,000 subscribers, and every little bit helps. Again, to our extraordinary moderators, thank you for just going above and beyond, truly. And of course, to my amazing team, I certainly could not do this without them. And every day they blow my mind. So thanks, guys. All right, that does it for us tonight. It is going to be Friday tomorrow, so we will be back for Mary Trump Live at 6 p.m. Eastern. Again, don't forget to check out our other videos and spread the word. And that's it. Everybody have a wonderful night. I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.